Check out today's piece of fan art. We have a piece commissioned by Terumi 2020 on my Discord, featuring his OC hanging with some lovely Chaldean ladies. I love how varied the poses are. They lend a solid personality to each character. Thank you so much, Amenusa. Welcome back to OtakuDaiKun. Dai here. We're so close to covering the next Lost Belt in India, but before we do that, it's actually really helpful for us to talk about an event that precedes it, the Tokugawa Restoration Labyrinth Ooku. Unlike a lot of the sillier events in Fate Grand Order, this one develops the overall lore of Type Moon by introducing a new beast of humanity. Plus, its antagonist, Kama, is a direct result of what's going on in the Indian Lost Belt. Since she's the star of the show, let's start with her. In mythology, Kama, or Kamadeva, is the Indian god of love, and is actually a male according to legend. If you're familiar with the Greek Cupid, the little baby who shoots people with heart arrows to make them fall in love, then Kama is pretty much the Indian counterpart of this idea. He's a charming male who rides atop a parrot, wielding a sugarcane bow with flower arrows. These arrows cause their targets to fall in love. This ability was thought to come in handy when the gods requested that Parvati, Kama's sister, conceive a child with her husband Shiva, the god of destruction and creation. Problem was, Shiva wasn't interested in Parvati and was too busy meditating. As such, Kama was tasked with forcing Shiva's hand by shooting him with an arrow of love. Sadly, this backfired, and Shiva, rather than being enamored, invoked his wrath upon Kama, opening his third eye to painfully incinerate Kama's body. As a result, Kama is thought of as a god of the universe, without a corporeal form. Another aspect of Kama is thought to be the incarnation of worldly desires, the demon king Amara. In legend, Mara was a demon who obstructed those who practice Buddhism, specifically opposing the Gautama Buddha's enlightenment with temptation from beautiful women, as well as attacks from monsters, deadly weather, and weapons including a plate of fire. None of these attempts worked, but in the same way that Kama became an enemy of Shiva, so too did Mara become an enemy of all Buddhism. The way that Fate puts it, Kama and Mara are two sides of the same coin. The former being the good aspect of love, and the latter being the evil side of love. It's really not hard to understand why Kama resents his job as a god of love. He was torched by Shiva, after all, and because of that suffering, he rebels to cause havoc for Parvati, allowing Mara to greatly influence him. In FGO, Kama/Mara takes on the form of a Sakura face, so while Persona gives us a nightmarish dick chariot, Fate gives us a sexy Kohai. This form matches Kama's sister Parvati, who's already joined Chaldea as a pseudo-servant using Sakura Mato's body. As I mentioned before, Parvati is famously known as Shiva's wife. She consists of two aspects, Kali, the god of fury, and Durga, the god of war. Typically, she's thought of in terms of Shiva, and so in battle, she uses Shiva's spear, Trishula. Despite being a war goddess, she manifests in Sakura's body because the two of them share similar personalities. Ritsuka first met Parvati during a ray shift to Fuyuki. There, Parvati was searching for Sakura's school uniform, which had been stolen by Medusa as a trap. Turns out Medusa's got some lasting affections for Sakura, and tries to convince Parvati to abandon her vessel. Of course she doesn't, and now she's a servant of Chaldea. Normally, Mara is meant to be held in check by Shiva's watchful eye. But during the formation of the Indian Lost Belt, Arjuna absorbed the divinity of most of the Indian gods, including Shiva. This allowed Mara's presence inside Kama to strengthen, and she escaped the Lost Belt in order to become a beast of humanity. More specifically, Beast 3L, the counterpart to Sessyoin Kiara's Beast 3R. These two beasts share a number because they both corrupt humanity through love. In Kiara's case, it was a matter of humanity loving her obsessively. It was a selfish love, where she continually basked in the love of others. Kama, on the other hand, no doubt thanks to Mara's influence, seeks to love humans in order to corrupt them. In her case, by giving love to all, rather than taking it for herself, she hopes to tempt humanity into its corruption. Of course, transforming into a beast takes time, and the counterforce sure as hell doesn't want another beast being born. Thus, to hide herself until completion, Kama seeks refuge in a singularity she constructs from the dying wishes of a single woman, Lady Kasuga of Japan's Edo period. Now, the Edo period was ushered in by the Tokugawa shogunate, and this reign was carried on by various Tokugawa children. Lady Kasuga served as the family's wet nurse, personally raising Tokugawa Iemitsu in the early 1600s. She became famous for more rigorously establishing the Ooku, a chamber within the imperial castle meant for the family's wives, nurses, and concubines. Such a chamber had existed previously, but Kasuga reformed it into a place to raise and protect the Tokugawa heir. Normally, Lady Kasuga would die in the year 1643, wishing at the end of her life for the chance to continue nurturing the Tokugawa lineage, but this wish drew Kama to the Ooku, where the fleeing goddess would take over and turn it into a full-blown singularity. She started this by tempting Tokugawa Iemitsu with her body, and, assuming it was her adult form, I honestly wouldn't blame the guy. She consumed his soul and used its karmic threads, his connection to other people, to steal the souls of everyone in the Ooku. Between Iemitsu and Kasuga's karmic threads, Kama absorbed nearly all of the souls in Edo, as well as the souls of the Tokugawa shoguns from the past and future. Knowing we would eventually be a threat, Kama also targeted Chaldea to get to Ritsuka. She took advantage of Gordolf, because he's such a simp, and charmed him into disabling Chaldea's protection. This allowed her to forcibly ray-shift nearly all of Chaldea's staff and servants into the Ooku, holding them prisoner. Sion saw Chaldea's residence disappearing and cut off the interference to spare both Mashu and Ritsuka. Of all the servants caught up in Kama's plan, only 2 managed to preserve their saint crafts. The first is Kiara Sessyoin. As an ex-beast of sorts, it appears Kiara was resistant to Kama's influence. Of course, Chaldea has no idea why, as the Seraph singularity she came from way back ended with everyone losing their memories. Heck, Ritsuka doesn't even remember summoning Kiara afterward. She's fully aware of this though, and as such volunteers to help sort this mess out. The other servant to resist Kama was, in fact, her own sister Parvati. Not only was Parvati able to remain a functioning servant, she also sensed the soul of Lady Kasuga and offered up her body as a vessel. Because of this, Parvati was able to preserve Kasuga while still helping us in battle. Nice job! So, what did Kama need with all of these souls anyway? Again, she needed to create a singularity she could use to hide from the counterforce until awakening as a beast, but the actual form the singularity takes is quite complex. Essentially, Kama turned the Ooku into a massive 6-floor labyrinth, using her gathered souls as materials. The most crucial parts are, naturally, the Tokugawa shoguns, who have been trapped within pillboxes scattered throughout the structure. One might say that this Ooku is more or less fueled by Tokugawa energy, with Kama at its core. She believes she's established the ideal facility for her transformation into a beast, because now the Ooku is tied to her own body, and in turn, the universe she presides over. The power of the Tokugawa shogunate will enable her to spread across the world and corrupt each and every human with her love. To ensure nobody can oppose her, Kama imbued the labyrinth with a curse that would turn any would-be intruders into Tokugawa themselves. In order for a human to pass through each floor, they must break the 5 Buddhist precepts, which happen to forbid killing, lying, alcohol, stealing, and my favorite, sexual temptation. In other words, by breaking these precepts, one is indulging in pleasure. And since Kama has defined the Ooku as a place where the Tokugawa seek pleasure, anyone who reaches the end of it will be cursed to become a Tokugawa. Hilariously, Kama uses Gordolf as a guinea pig for testing this curse. Before Ritsuka arrives, Gordolf makes his way through the labyrinth, naively falling into Kama's trap until he enters a delusion of being a Tokugawa. For all intents and purposes, it would appear that Kama's labyrinth truly is a foolproof contraption. That said, the flaw lies with Kama herself, specifically her own arrogance. One of the people to survive Kama's soul harvest was Matsudaira Nobutsuna, a warlord who served Tokugawa Iemitsu. Before Kama made her appearance, he teamed up with a Buddhist monk named Tenkai to stop her. Their plan is predicated on a clever contradiction. Despite being a loyal retainer to the Tokugawa, Tenkai had Nobutsuna embody anti-Tokugawa sentiments. Nobutsuna's organs were removed and fashioned into Hanafuda cards scattered throughout the labyrinth. They contain the same energy used to make the Ooku, but could be used not to protect, but to slay the Tokugawa. For this to work, however, Tenkai placed a spell on Nobutsuna to make him a traitor to the Tokugawa. They thought that, ironically, to defeat the enemy attacking the Tokugawa, they would need to actually defeat the Tokugawa themselves. They would have to defeat the shogunate to save it, all because Kama took the Tokugawa lineage as her own source of strength. In this state, Nobutsuna approached Kama and offered his service to her. Kama knew something was up and that Nobutsuna couldn't be trusted, but she played along, anticipating his plan to fail, and that agony would bring her more pleasure. For the vast majority of our time spent in the Tokugawa Labyrinth, we are unintentionally playing into Kama's hand. Accompanied by Kiara and Parvati, Ritsuka ventures through the first floor, having to slay enemies along the way, thereby breaking one precept. On the second floor, we lie to the Oku's puppet enforcers for easier passage, breaking a second precept. On the third floor, Ritsuka has to become intoxicated in response to an alcoholic mist throughout the hallways, breaking a third precept. On the fourth, we have to steal keys to get through locked doors, breaking yet another. And on the fifth, we have to proceed through pathways adorned with erotic imagery, breaking the final precept. Along the way, we gather various Tokugawa pillboxes, and even encounter a suspicious dead end. Kama tries to weaponize some of Ritsuka's servants, but through combat, we're able to recruit them to our side. The first of these servants is Yagyu Munenori, one of the strongest swordsmen of the Edo period. I introduced him way back in Shimosa. Then there's Matahari, whom we've teamed up with a couple of times now, and Scheherazade, the narrator of the Arabian Nights introduced in Agartha. Altogether, this makes for a rather humorous party. Lady Kasuga finds Matahari's apparel too revealing for Buddhist virtues, which of course Matahari doesn't care for at all. Her charm is able to make Ritsuka intoxicated without actually having to drink. Oh, and Kiara is a riot. Let's just say that she has her own special interpretation of the Buddhist teachings. She's constantly trying to restrain her own lust in the wake of temptation. At the end of each floor, we fight against a specter summoned by either Nobutsuna or Kama herself. The deeper we go, the more Kama's default lolly form turns into a full-bodied bombshell. I swear, I really wish I was able to summon her. Well, we finally make it to the 6th floor, and just as Kama planned, breaking the precepts begins to brainwash Ritsuka into thinking they're a Tokugawa just like Gordolf. Things seem dire, as Kama reveals she's corrupted the one person who defeated her counterpart, Beast 3R, and that she is now becoming a beast herself. Gordolf is still here, being a total embarrassment, when Lady Kasuga smacks him and reprimands him for his misbehavior. After all, she is one who teaches the Tokugawa, and part of that process involves putting them in their place should they misbehave. This actually breaks Gordolf from the curse, enough for him to actually try and punch Kama, ignorant that she's a friggin' beast on par with Getia and Tiamat. Sadly, this was only a temporary fix, and the only way to save Ritsuka is to escape the innermost chamber. Kiara decides to stay behind so everyone else can flee. This leaves her to confront Kama beast to beast, but because Kiara isn't nearly as strong as she once was, she loses the battle and vanishes. The party is sent to the very start of the labyrinth, where we try to form another strategy. Sion figures that if the pillboxes are the souls of Tokugawa shoguns, then perhaps we can find the pillbox belonging to Tokugawa Yoshinobu, the final one. We start to believe that, perhaps, having this pillbox will signify the end of the Tokugawa, weakening Kama's hold over Ritsuka. Even Lady Kasuga, who is shocked to realize that the Tokugawa lineage does indeed end, agrees with the plan. We go back to that suspicious dead end we ignored before, and notice a wall we can break through. On the other side is, sure enough, Yoshinobu's pillbox. In an attempt to make Ritsuka immune to the Tokugawa curse, the pillbox is fused with their mystic code, which, sadly, is also exactly what Kama wants. When we confront her once more, she reveals that she left the pillboxes exclusively so that Ritsuka could find them, even Yoshinobu's. If anything, it's made our Tokugawa energy stronger than ever, and Kama harnesses that energy to become a universal beast with enough versions of herself to love all of humanity. She plunges Ritsuka into a dark void, and all seems lost until Lady Kasuga forms a new plan. She asked Parvati to release her soul, and for Scheherazade and Matahari to use their noble phantasms to empower her spirit. Essentially, Kasuga begins to embody the legends about her and her influence over the Ooku. She declares the Ooku her domain, stealing enough control to turn the floor back to normal. With an opportunity in sight, Nobutsuna makes his move, revealing the purpose behind the Hanafuda cards. Using them frees Ritsuka from confinement, forcing Kama to regret ever having kept Nobutsuna around. He has Yagyu Munenori cut him down, turning his body into a fake Muramasa blade, the exact type of sword used against the Tokugawa shogunate. With this sword, Yagyu can finally harm Kama. As he slices through Kama's various clones, she realizes that she'll be killed if she keeps her connection to Tokugawa, and so she relinquishes it. While she felt that she had to, this was an equally fatal decision, as it also relinquished her authority over the Ooku. Thanks to this, Lady Kasuga gains full control of the space, and uses it to eject Kama. As Kama is being tossed from her former domain, Parvati strikes her down with the full might of the noble phantasm Trishula Shakti, bringing her horrible pain reminiscent of Shiva's wrath. Cursing her fate, Kama is more or less destroyed, resolving the singularity. Peace is restored to Chaldea, and everyone who was forcibly ray-shifted is back. Lady Kasuga accepts her end, content with knowing the Tokugawa lineage helped shape a happy future for Japan. Gordolf, having spent the entire time basking in luxury, lounging away and eating constantly, is put on a hyper-intensive weight loss program by Da Vinci, so that when we go to the Indian Lost Belt, he'll be in top shape. Parvati has exhausted herself, claiming she'll be unable to join us on our next excursion, though she does help speculate about the Lost Belt's nature, given what she knows about the other gods. After being defeated, Kama retreats into her inner universe, where she falls victim to Kiara's giant hands. While Kiara had been killed off earlier, she was able to reconstruct her body within Kama's space. At Kiara's mercy, Kama expects to be consumed so that a full Beast 3 can emerge, but Kiara explains the two of them are incompatible. Rather, Kiara is here to punish Kama by forcing her to become a heroic spirit for Chaldea. Rather than a punishment, however, Kama decides to take this as a challenge. During their final battle, Lady Kasuga criticized that Kama was ignorant about the sort of love fostered in the Ooku, and so Kama aims to use this as an opportunity to expand her outlook on love, as well as to torment Parvati some more. So, yet again, we recruit a former enemy into our ranks, increasing the number of Sakura faces in Ritsuka's arsenal. Thanks to this, we can take her along when fighting her fellow Indian gods in the Lost Belt, which I'll be covering in our next video. Look forward to it! Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this channel, help me beat the algorithm by liking, commenting, and sharing the video, subscribing to OtakuDaiKun, and, most of all, smashing that notification bell so you don't miss out on all of my anime discussion, lore, or Let's Play content. If you want to support me directly, there are now 3 ways that all provide the same benefits. You can click Join here on YouTube, or join Patreon or Subscribestar for access to exclusive vids and early access. As always, celebrate your fandom.